Do we have more to that? Our motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Knopf?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus? Aye. Mr. Coates?
Aye.
Ms. Knapple is aye. The motion is approved as written.
And pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property as the chair so declares that the open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Knopf?
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Mr. Coates?
Aye.
And Cindy Knapple is aye. The motion is approved as written. Thank you. We will be back at 6:30.
Thanks, Judy.
We wait
Yeah,
for
you know,
Chuck.
you could, yeah, because you could read the agenda. We could do the pledge if you want.
Yeah, we might as well start. Okay. Good evening, Littleton, and welcome to the Select Board meeting for April 12th, 2021. We will start tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To
to
the
the
flag
flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty,
and
justice for all.
for all.
So tonight's meeting will begin with organization and a reading of the mail. It will be followed by a department and board updates and requests. We have Elder and Human Services, a proclamation for National Older Americans Month, the month of May. Town Clerk Annual Town Election Warrant. That will be followed by public input and members updates. Then we have a select board discussion regarding, it's a follow-up discussion regarding a discussion that took place last week at our meeting with Nathan Long and A10 Associates to talk about goals, projects, and funding opportunities. That will be followed by the annual town meeting warrant for June 12th, 2021. We are going to review a soil removal bylaw amendments, a donation of land parcels U14 51-0 on University Drive and U14 50-0 on Manchester Drive. We're going to review and insert articles for our annual town meeting. That will be followed by the town administrator and assistant town administrator update regarding the senior center project. And then our meeting will adjourn for the evening. So if you could, Mr. Ansaldi, start it off with the meeting, with the mail.
Madam Chair, where we just met last week, that we really have received nothing to share at this time.
Okay, thank you. So now we're on to item 3A, Elder and Human Services. We have a proclamation for National Older Americans Month.
Yes, and I believe Ashley Joe is here. Let's promote her in.
Hello.
Oh,
Good evening.
Hello. How are you?
How is everyone?
Good.
Good. Thank you for taking my request into consideration for highlighting the month of May as National Older Americans Month. Back in 1963, President Kennedy had designated the month of May as Senior Centers Month, and then later it was named National Older Americans Month, honoring and celebrating older adults in the community and their contributions. Each year, the Administration of Community Living leads the nation and in the observance of the month. And every year there is a different theme. This year is communities of strength. And over this past year, we can all speak to Littleton being one of those communities that has really pulled together and shown incredible support. So thank you to everyone here for that. We are also planning to develop programming in May specific to engagement of the community to share older adults experiences and to continue to build that connection within the community. So I was just here to share more information on the month and hope to have it formally recognized.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Ashley? Nope. Okay, Mr. Knox, would you like to read the proclamation? Or would you like me to do it?
It's right up here, Joe. First the motion, and then I can flip you to the proclamation.
Move the select board vote to adopt May as National Older Americans Month by issuing the following proclamation.
Is that too small, Joe?
Testing my eyes, aren't you? It's my month too.
Use your 1963 eyes, Joe.
Yeah. Whereas Littleton includes a growing number of older Americans who have built resilience, strength over the lives through successes and difficulties. And whereas Littleton benefits when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds are included and encouraged to share their successes and stories of resilience. And whereas Littleton recognizes our need to nature ourselves, reinforce our strength, and continue thrive in times of both joy and difficulty. And whereas Littleton can foster community strength by creating opportunities to share stories and learn from each other, engaging older adults through education, recreation, service, and encouraging people of all ages to celebrate connections and resilience. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board of the Town of Littleton, hereby proclaim May 2021 to be Older Americans Month and urge every resident to recognize older adults and people who support them as essential contributors to the strength of our community.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Nordhaus,
Aye.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. DeCoste,
The coast is aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye, and the motion is approved as written, and the proclamation is affirmed.
Thanks,
Excellent.
Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated.
And next we are on to Town Clerk Annual Town Election Warrant.
All right, we can just let our town clerk in. And Jody is here.
Yeah, I got her.
All right.
Hello.
Hi, Diane.
So basically you have the warrant for us to be able to post for our annual election. I just needed you to sign it, accept it, so that we can officially post it through our Constable Chief Matthew Pinard and get it to our 8 meeting houses and our board downstairs at the town hall.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So the annual town election is going to be Saturday, May 8th, 2021. The change this year, for residents who may not be aware, is going to be held at the Littleton High School Gymnasium as opposed to the middle school.
That's correct. And it is the same times, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? So we're ready for a motion.
Move that the Select Board vote to execute the warrant for the annual town election to be held on Saturday, May 8th, 2021, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the gymnasium at Littleton High School, 56 King Street, and to direct that the constable post said warrant forthwith.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste,
The coast is aye.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Nordhaus,
Aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye, and the motion is approved as written. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Diane.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Don.
So next we have public input, members updates. Do we have anyone on the call with public input, Mr. Layden?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have Anita Harding.
Hello?
Good evening, Anita.
No, it's my husband, Dave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, last week I had a medical emergency, and I would really like to put personal thanks to the fire and police who responded to my problem very quickly, and they were very professional in getting me help and getting me to the hospital.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Dave, and we're glad that you're doing well.
Right.
Thanks, Dave.
We appreciate
Stay well.
that.
It's really important that our guys get thanked because it doesn't happen that often. And they do a phenomenal job.
Anita, I understand they like cookies.
Well, they're already baked and they're going out tomorrow morning.
Excellent.
Not a problem. It's too bad Dave couldn't help make them, but when you put your hand through a table saw,
Oh,
Gosh.
so
Oh, man.
he's a little bit bummed. He's got three fractured fingers, so,
Oh, goodness.
but he has his fingers. That's a good thing.
That's a
Right.
good thing.
That's the way you have to look at it.
That's right.
good luck
So
with the healing.
thank you from the bottom of our hearts to the police and the fire department.
Thank you. We appreciate you sharing that. Be well. Do we have anyone else, Mr. Layden?
No, Madam Chair, we do not.
Okay, so we'll go on to members' updates. We'll start with Mr. Nordhaus.
Sorry. Sorry.
Preemptive. I guess first I would like to remind everyone that next week, the 20th is Candidates Night on LCTV, sponsored by the Rotary at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Everyone should attend. And I also attended the COA meeting today, along with Mr. Ansaldi. And Marin joined with information about the senior residential bylaw amendment. There was no vote or anything like that, but the tone was very positive, I think, about the proposed changes. And I think as we're going to discuss later tonight, there was also further discussion of the senior center. And finally, I hope I'm not spoiling a surprise, but the COA chose to recommend Gary Wilson as a new member. And I can't help but saying that because I'm so excited and I think he'll be a great addition. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Mr. DeCoste, do you have anything to share?
Matthew stole my Gary Wilson news, but
Sorry.
That's all good.
Not sorry.
I'm glad it's out there. You're right. He's an asset for any committee or board that he serves on. We're lucky to have him. I just want to bring up, I know that Joe just sent this out to us, but the Littleton Electric Light and Water is doing a grab and go lunch tomorrow for the seniors from 11:30 to 1. And from what I hear through Ashley, there's about 200 residents from Littleton and Boxborough that have pre-registered. So that's great news. That's 11:30 to 1 o'clock at El Forno tomorrow. Again, sponsored by or paid for by the Littleton Electric Light and Water Department. So thank you to them for always taking care of our community and our seniors. Just to follow up on the Economic Development Committee, we had discussed this a little bit last week. We did have a summit, as I had mentioned last week, we were going to do. Madam Chair was present, myself, the chair of the EDC, Caroline Armstrong, Vanessa Strong was there, and Joe joined us as well. And it was good to kind of hear some of what Joe has experienced in other communities and talk about some next steps and some opportunities for us to truly make the Economic Development Committee a substantial and contributing committee within the community. So we've reached out to Jim Kennedy, as I had told y'all, and I committed to last week. And Jim got right to work on the, I always mess up the acronym, Joe, but the grant that we're in with some of the surrounding communities that was kind of spearheaded by town administrator.
Yeah, the rapid response program.
Right, exactly. And Jim is putting together a economic recovery funding survey that he's getting out through the LBA, and we want to try to get that out through some social media avenues to get as many small businesses in the community to respond, so that we can get a good picture for the consultant what's going on and what is needed by the business community through this pandemic. So thank you very much to all those that participated in that, and please be on the lookout for opportunities to help Jim get that word out there. And I do have just relative to the communities of strength that Ashley was just talking about, is kind of serendipitous that she mentioned communities of strength as this year for the elders being community of strength. Littleton always seems to step up and be just that community. I think we've all in some way, shape, or form benefited from our community stepping up and helping us out. I'm humbled personally for all that the community has done to help the DeCoste family this past year. The Santoro family celebrated no more chemo for little Jane, and just there's so many beautiful acts of kindness that happen in this community that don't necessarily get the shout out or the recognition. Just like we recognized our police and fire for helping out Mr. Harding. So I just wanted to tie that in with the community of strength that Ashley just brought up earlier.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Knox, do you have anything to share?
Just two quick things. I met, and also Anthony was there for the Transportation Advisory Council. We went through a number of different subjects. The meeting lasted about an hour and a half, but later on we will be going through a discussion about possible funding for a trails type of master plan that would include bike trails and trails that would connect us throughout the town, but I'll bring it up later on. The other thing is Joe Layden and I met with James Kennedy of the Littleton Business Association, and I can't remember the consultant's name, but it has to do with possible grant that Joe Layden's been working on that could aid the business community. Joe, I don't know whether you want to add more into that.
Sure. Thank you, Joe. That was also related to what Chuck was referring to, that we had received funding through DHCD to assist Littleton businesses by identifying impacts that they had as a result of COVID, and through the survey that Littleton Business Association is helping put out there. We hope to be able to really identify specific ways that we can help Littleton businesses recover. This is going to be a very important year as everyone starts opening back up and trying to make sure Littleton businesses have the best possible footing to come back strong.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you. So just a couple updates for the board. I had mentioned in the past applying for the Veterans Heritage Grant Program for the World War I Monument Restoration Project. I was not able to get all of the information that I needed for that grant application by the April 9th deadline. So there is currently a GoFundMe for that project, which will continue, but it's certainly a project that we'll plan on pursuing grant funding for next year. When we have all the documents together that we needed. I had a hard time securing proposals for the restoration of the monument itself. So that is, something that's definitely in the works, but not going to take place this year. I just wanted to bring the board up to speed on that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is the planning board had a meeting with Northern Bank regarding their latest proposal. I know that Mr. DeCoste was on that call. And one of the things I was thinking about after, thinking about the conversation and listening to the residents on Robinson Road and their concerns about the way that proposal was presented, is the intersection of Robinson Road with Great Road seems to be a problem for residents, and I feel like we've heard concerns about the way that intersection's configured, not just with the recent proposal from Northern Bank, but just in general. And I didn't know if what the board's thoughts were, maybe having Chris Stoddard take a look at that intersection. There's like an island there, and there's a couple businesses in really close proximity to that point. Just in general, it seems like there's always a problem. So I was just wanting to see what the board thought about maybe having Chris take a look at that intersection, see if there would be an easier way to configure it, make it easier, maybe alleviate some of the concerns of the residents on Robinson Road, but also as we're moving forward with form-based code and, hopefully this Northern Bank project proposal, that maybe there's some way to mitigate concerns of both the residents and Northern Bank, and just in general improve traffic in that spot. So I didn't know if the board had any thoughts. Maybe we could have Mr. Ansaldi or Mr. Layden reach out to Mr. Stoddard and just have him take a quick look at it and see if, get his initial thoughts on it. I don't know if the board had any thoughts about that or in general.
I'll
Wasn't,
jump in. Go ahead. Go, Matthew.
I was just going to say, I know there was a previous issue with Northern Bank's proposal, and I think it did also center around the intersection of Robinson Road and Great Road, did it not?
I don't know. I don't know that their prior proposal did
Okay.
specific to that intersection. And I mean, that's one issue, you know, with their proposal, but I think just in general, there seems to be an issue there. Even before this latest proposal from Northern Bank came about, I just started thinking about it. So I didn't know if it's worth having, you know, Chris Stoddard take a look at it and see if there's some way that it could be reconfigured.
I'll jump in. I think that that's it's definitely worth having our town engineer, Mr. Stoddard, take a look at it. But I think I'd once he kind of gets looking at it, it's probably worth engaging the engineers that the bank has on their retainer as well, because you might be able to get their expertise and some guidance from them that will be mutually beneficial. And there might be
Okay.
some opportunities for them to do some stuff that right now their property comes to a point. You know, if there is some reconfiguring, there might be an opportunity to assuage some of the concerns that the residents have, as well as fixing whatever that bottleneck happens to be down in front of the dentist's office and the Baker House.
Okay.
So I'd just say, you know, if we are going to do that, once we get some thoughts and ideas from Chris, maybe engage the bank's engineers just to see what they might throw out there.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. I agree. Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Knox had mentioned the Transportation Advisory Council. As the board may recall, Gary LaCroix, who is championing that committee right now, had come before the board and wanted us to really think about succession planning and the way that group is structured. So that's something that I definitely want to revisit. I don't want to lose sight of that. And maybe, Mr. Knox, since you're the board's liaison to the Transportation Advisory Council, maybe you could work with that group and see if they have any ideas. You know, do we make it an official committee with a chair and a vice chair, or what do we do as far as succession planning and make sure that the initiatives of that group are sustainable?
No, but that's something that should be worked on, because I can know that Gary's put an extreme amount of time into it, and somewhere along the line, he's going to step down. So we need someone else, other people to step into that position. So we should do some work on organizing that committee.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to add to that, at the last Transportation Advisory Council meeting, they did include the BPAC chair, Jonathan Isaac, and they discussed one of the things that I mentioned to Gary on. Did it make sense if he was having problems with getting people to combine those two committees? So Jonathan is also going to look at that and from BPAC's point of view and take that into consideration. I think they're going to meet to discuss or have another follow-up conversation to discuss whether that makes sense or not for both
Okay.
committees.
All right, great. Thank you. And the only other thing I had to mention, I don't know if the board, I was invited to an AgCom meeting a couple weeks ago, which I was very grateful for that invitation. And one of the things that came about was talking about TDR and where that currently stands. So there was an email that I had been copied on that was circulated to the board, I believe, I hope. Just giving the board an update about discussions that have been taking place between the Agricultural Commission and the Planning Board relative to TDR. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody took a look at that. And I was thinking, I don't know if it's something that maybe we should plan on scheduling a joint meeting with them. Maybe Mr. Ansaldi, you can look into that a little bit more and see where that is. If it's something that requires our attention prior to town meeting, or if it's something, it seems like they're waiting to see what happens with the Littleton Station project before really looking into that more closely. So, or moving forward with their proposed changes, so.
Madam Chair, I just suggest maybe the planning board should be involved in any TDR discussions. If we're
Yeah,
going to
that's
have a
what
joint meeting.
Yeah, that's who I meant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were
Yeah.
talking. I'm sorry. I thought for some
No.
reason I was thinking about AgCom.
No. So AgCom is working with the planning board right now, so if it would involve both of those groups if we were going to have any type of joint meeting, absolutely.
I would very much like to talk about it because there were some things about that proposal that I don't fully understand and would love to get more information about it.
Right. I have a hard time getting my head around TDR anyways, personally, so I agree with you. I think that would be helpful. Okay. Right. Thank you. So that's all I have for this evening. So next we are on to a follow-up discussion regarding Nathan Long and A10 Associates goals, projects, and funding opportunities.
All right, Madam Chair. So Joe and I met with, we had a Zoom meeting today with Nathan Long and A10 Associates, and thank you, board, for your comments back that from last meeting as far as what some of the priority projects are in town. And can you see that screen that I have them listed right now? Is that up?
Yep.
Okay. So in speaking to A10, what they understand that the Longs property is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and that's probably 3 to 5 years before. First of all, it has to pass town meeting, and then it would be a 3 to 5 year before you see an end result there. Probably closer to the 5 year, I would guess. But they were willing to just anything that might be a priority for the town to also help in securing funding, or some of the discussion we had today was around they'd like to help the 40R project, the bylaw for town meeting, by getting some letters of support from some of the state officials that they know from Secretary Theoridis' office and the governor's office that very much is interested in the last parcel of land adjacent to a train station that's has a potential to being developed. So they're just they offered themselves, if that's what the board would like. I could circle back with them and we could get that support as far as letters. But also they understand that they don't want to be in conflicting with the town on different grants that might be available. Ones that they'd obviously be interested in for that project up there, or over there, I should say, and then any project that we currently have going on in town. So it was a good conversation. Joe, feel free to add anything if I'm missing something, but they're willing to help. And if they, we went through the sewer project. I know Selectman Glady is very much involved with, as he reported last Monday, with trying to work with Congressman Mitchell Hand's office. So that, I think, is in Paul's hands. But if there's something else that the board would like, then A10 would be happy to, at really no expense for the town, to aid in support letters or grants or anything else that we may, you determine to be a priority.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from the board?
Madam Chair, if I may. I'm curious what the rest of the board thinks on what sort of impact letters from state reps are going to have on our, on our town meeting vote. I mean, I have no doubt that it might help, but I'm wondering if it's a good use of A10's time and effort and political capital, as it were.
Can't hurt. I don't see any reason why we don't. It's not going to throw anything backwards, and it might help some people get a better understanding of how important the state thinks this type of project actually is.
Great.
Mr. DeCoste?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't think there's any, I can't foresee any downside.
I don't think there's any harm to it, but to
Right.
Matthew's point, I don't know. There's definitely no harm to it. I just don't know if it's like, to Matthew's point, worth their time and resources to get those letters. I mean, I think, it's one thing if we could get those letters and then we could go to town meeting and the 40R project passes, and then we can go back to the state and say, not only do the residents support this project, but we've also got these other letters, and then that can help us procure funding for infrastructure and other things that we might need in that area associated with that project. And in that respect, I think it's very beneficial.
Madam Chair, and the folks that they were talking about reaching out to is directly to the governor's office, the lieutenant governor's office. So-
Right.
So,
I mean, I very much, and I've been, saying this for a while. I mean, it was a few years ago, I attended a session at Devon's, and Governor Baker was there and Lieutenant Governor Polito, and it was funny because Chief Pennard was there as well. And after that meeting, he, came up to me, he goes, I felt like Governor Baker was talking about Littleton. It was funny. It was like all his initiatives, everything that he wanted to accomplish or was hoping to achieve for the state. And all I could think about was Littleton. And all I could think about at the time I was on the Littleton Station working group was that project and what the Longs are proposing for the town of Littleton. And I have been saying, for a few months now, I'd really like to get his attention and the attention of the state on this project, because it really does check a lot of boxes of the initiatives of the Baker Polito administration. So in that regard, I think it would be worthwhile. I think the more attention we can get to the project, I think it would be helpful. Not so much, with the residents. I think with some, it will hold a lot of merit and weight with them. Others, not so much, and that's okay. But I think just as much attention as we can get to the project from the state level will be helpful.
That's actually a really good point I hadn't considered, which is like, later on, it's going to help us. So the only other comment I had, I suspect that all of our priorities are fairly aligned. The only other thing I wanted to be cautious about, and I know that A10 has been very careful about not doing anything without our explicit say so, but I know that both Chris and Nick, I think Nick, have said that they approach MassWorks grants with, a sort of careful tread because you only get so many times, so many bites at the apple. So if we're going to do sewer money or wastewater money, and we can do it through the Mass EPA or the feds, that would be a much better choice. And to leave the MassWorks grants to our town directors to wrangle.
and if I may add to that, Matthew, so one of the things that I had a discussion about was the $6 million earmark that we have for the sewer project. And that was great. We appreciate Senator Eldridge doing that, but an earmark is without the funding is just an earmark. So they said that they also lobby on our behalf, where they do have a direct pipeline to Secretary Theoritis' his office to see if they can help possibly get some of those funds that was in the earmark.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's to Cindy, to your point, it's a squeaky wheel thing. The more times we can show up, we don't have the guy in the bow tie anymore, showing up for photo ops with Lieutenant Governor Polito.
Get a bow tie, Chuck. I've been
I
telling
was
you
thinking
that.
Anthony needs a bow tie, but
That's it. It's got to be in the repertoire. Now I'm going to get the bow tie.
But I think that just to make sure that Littleton is at the front of their minds, I think again, it can't hurt.
Okay,
May I jump in just for a second?
certainly.
Just to add, hi, everyone. To our conversation today, if we're able to come away with this with a little direction, for example, like Anthony had just mentioned, if the town would allow A10 to go forward and say, if you guys can figure out a way to secure the $6 million that have been set aside, please feel free to do it, then they'd be off and running on that. That's the kind of guidance and direction they've been waiting for before they do anything on behalf of the town. As well as even just like we talked about securing letters or any type of support at the state or federal level. If you guys were okay with them going forward and talking about the project and talking about the fact that the select board in Littleton does support it, they'd be able to secure letters that say that as of right now, the governor's office is, or they will attempt to, the governor's office is in favor of this, the lieutenant governor's office is in favor of this, some different departments in the state are in favor of this. So that when it's being listed on the articles at town meeting, which boards in Littleton support it, at some point, similarly at some location, we could also list some of the other agencies and offices that support it as well.
Yeah.
But those are the types of guidance that we came to the meeting last week hoping to get, and we can continue to work with the town on finding other directions to go with the board's permission.
Okay. I mean, personally, I think the letters of support, I'd like to authorize A10 to move forward with that initiative unless there's an objection from the board on that.
That with me.
Okay. So for that, as far as the $6 million earmark, I don't know if we want to wait and have Paul here for that discussion, since he has been more involved with the sewer project, and I know he's been working with Congresswoman Trahan's office on procuring funding, and I don't want to step on toes or, and I'd prefer to have Paul here for that before we make that decision.
Yeah,
If that's okay with the board. Is there any other direction that we want to give to A10 at this point, or just move forward with the letters?
I would just say, if we don't have any more direction, let's make sure we have a plan to continue to have this discussion, because I don't want this opportunity to go away.
Right.
Certainly there's plenty of work between now and the next month for them to get all that and to really dedicate all their time to get those support letters. And then we can put this back on the agenda, Madam Chair, for the 26th. Have a follow-up conversation about the $6 million earmark. Maybe A10 has made some good progress on the support letters, and then we can send them on with their next task.
Okay. That sounds good. All right, let's do that.
Thank you, everyone.
All right,
Great.
Nate, why don't we connect like we talked about later in the week, midweek?
That sounds good. Sure.
Great.
Paul
Thank you.
did
for your
just
time.
join us as well.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are on to annual town meeting warrant. We have a soil removal bylaw amendments proposal.
Joe, you want to take this?
Sure thing. Madam Chair and Select Board, for your consideration in the packet is basically some more strategic amendments to the existing soil removal bylaw. There was a couple items that in past applications in front of the board, there was some general discussion as far as just trying to close a couple of loopholes, put together some proposed language that I reviewed with Ed Mullen and Martin Tuhill to get their input. Basically just specifying that removal is associated with issuance of a permit and is incidental, putting on a shall not exceed amount of 1,000 cubic yards, and then also specifying that exempt from that would be subdivisions or special permits where removal is approved through the planning board that's necessary for construction of approved streets and associated infrastructure. When we went through the public hearings last year, it was raised that there was a question mark as far as existing subdivisions and other projects, how that occurred. And then also there was some discussion relating to putting a cap on earth removal as well when it was deemed incidental. And 1,000 cubic yards is actually a good amount as well. But wanted to have it for the board's consideration. And if if there's any input or feedback, can also go back and make some further changes for consideration for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Layden. I see Mr. Harrington's joined us this evening as well. So did the board have time to check over these proposed changes, and are there any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I do have one question.
Okay.
I'm curious on the section B on the why only streets and infrastructure? Why is like the housing section of the development not included in that?
Because very often for special permits, that would probably be more appropriate. For subdivisions, because subdivisions is specifically for the layout of the right-of-way, infrastructure, drainage areas. Development on individual lots is usually separate and is permitted through the building department, may require conservation, where conservation may issue orders and conditions for individual properties, but not necessarily for the whole development. So that if there was something that then someone came in and was presented with a very large amount of material, that would actually trigger it rather than being included under planning board approval, because the planning board approval may not necessarily go that far within the development.
But someone could remove 999 cubic yards from each housing lot without.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, I'm just glad it was brought up. I don't know, Joe, if this was something you thought of. It's good it's being done, because this is something that would have been put in the back burner and not brought up until we had another case.
Yeah,
and
we were on a staff side, we were talking about total overhaul, putting it back in front of the planning board. We were, something that became like 5 to 10 pages long, and then sort of just said, why don't we just make some very strategic, straightforward changes? We're not pulling together different processes. We can still rely on existing processes of the land development boards, and just sort of came forward with this.
Okay, great.
Appreciate all the time and effort.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Mr. Layden. So are we ready to vote on this evening? We do have a motion.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
I am here now, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Mr. Glavy.
Got my first shot.
Oh, good for you.
Haven't sprouted werewolf hair yet. Or anything.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. The only motion I see here is for the collective motion for remaining articles we're going to add. Is there a separate one for this, Anthony?
No, that's, I was on mute. No, when we go through when I go through the rest of the articles, we can go through it then and vote to insert them all together.
Okay.
Same with the next item too, Madam Chair, which is the deed in lieu of the foreclosure, and that was the donated land from the estate of Walter Lennon. We had town council at the board's direction draft a warrant article to proceed forward with taking that donation of land for. Go ahead, Joe,
Madam
sorry.
Chair, I would just like to, I did have a proposed motion for the control sheet on 6A, because it wasn't itemized in the under 6B. If we could consider that motion, because it's not in the list of articles.
Okay, yeah, because I did see that on 6A. Okay.
I can pull it up.
It looked like it was a standalone motion.
Paul, do you have it? 6A, Paul? The motion?
I got 6A, but I don't see an independent motion of it.
Yeah, it's on.
There it is. It's right there if you want to read the screen.
Oh, okay, fine, thank you. Move that the select board vote to insert the amendments to the trail removal bylaw article onto the warrant for the 2021 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. DeCoste,
DeCoste is aye.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
and Mr. Nordhaus.
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye, and the motion is approved as written. And now we're on to the donation of land
Yes, give me a second. I'm going to share my,
from the estate of Walter Lennon.
yes, Madam Chair. Oh, did I share the wrong thing?
Share anything.
Sorry. I have too many screens open. So, Madam Chair, here's Article 37. We're up to 39 articles for the annual town meeting, which is to see if the town will vote to accept the 2 parcels of land from the estate of Walter Lennon, identified as tax parcels U14 51-0 on University Drive and U14-50-0 on Manchester Drive, by deed in lieu of foreclosure pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 77C, where said parcels have unpaid real estate taxes in the amount of $814.27 and $872.38 respectively. And upon the acceptance of which the taxes shall be treated as having been paid and the land held for general municipal purposes by the select board. So that's the warrant article under your direction that town council crafted, which you can vote to insert when we go through. There's no motion with this one per se right
Okay.
now.
All right.
But I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have, or town council's here as well.
Was there any questions?
I have
On
one.
this?
I have one quick one. I know we discussed it last time that there might be a small cost for the town associated with this for surveying or whatever.
Boarding.
Does that have any, or clerk fees? Do we have to recognize that at all in this article?
I don't think so, Tom.
I don't think we need to recognize it in the article, although it's a good point, Matthew, and we may want to address it in the motion. However, I believe these are sufficiently described, so we're not going to need to
Okay.
do much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a motion, Madam Chair. I don't know if you're ready for it or not.
Yes.
Okay. Move to recommend the town meeting vote to accept 2 parcels of land from the estate of Walter Lennon, identified as tax parcels U14-51-0 University Drive and U14-50-0 Manchester Drive, by a deed in lieu of foreclosure pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 77C, where said parcels have unpaid real estate taxes in the amount of $814.27 and $872.38 respectively, and upon the acceptance of which the taxes shall be treated as having been paid in the land held for general municipal purposes by the select board.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Nordhaus?
Yes.
Mr. DeCoste?
Goes to Zach.
Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Glavy?
Aye.
And Cindy Napoli is aye. The motion is approved as written. And now we are on to item 6C.
All right, so now I'm gonna look through the PowerPoint presentation. All right, so at the last meeting last week, the articles in green you voted to insert into the warrant for June 12th. And tonight we have a whole list to continue to insert into the warrant. Town council is here if there's any questions. Other than that, I'm going to flip through them one by one. So Article 15, that is the Park and Rec Commission retained earnings. That is an article that, just in case the Park and Rec does not make their budget, that they would use their retained earnings to supplement their budget. And this article would allow them to do that. The next article is Article 20. Article 20 is the acceptance of paragraph 4 of section 5B of chapter 30, which is, as in a prior meeting, we talked about the dedicated revenue stream to a stabilization fund. And we talked about quite possibly that the board in town meeting may want to have sales of excise tax from marijuana and possibly further HCAs to go into a dedicated stabilization fund. Article 20 accepts that paragraph in Mass General Law, which would allow us to do that. Not necessarily needs to identify the stabilization fund at a time, but allows us to do that at a future time, either this town meeting or another town meeting. Now, Article 21 is if you wanted to address it at this town meeting, Article 21 would do that. Sorry, I don't know why this is beeping in here. Can anybody hear that?
Not the fire
Yeah.
alarm in the building, is it, Anthony?
No, I think that I don't know if we lost power. Looks like my
Oh,
generator,
yes.
my backup for the computer, so I'm sorry, I don't know how to take care of that, but anyways. All right, so Article 21 would allow the town meeting to do that and put it to a revenue stream, where this is something where the board really hasn't discussed further. This is an Article 21, where we could hold off until the fall when we have a little bit more time to see where our finances are going to be. So if the board so chooses to want to deal with it now, you can deal with it now at this coming town meeting. Article 22 is the CONSCOM's open space budget, taking the funds from the Oak Hill Cell Tower. Article 23 is the senior work tax work-off program. It's a standard article that we have every year. Article 24 is adjust the income and asset limits for tax abatements. So as you recall, Kathy discussed accepting clause 41D, which would adjust the income limits and assets with how did you describe it? Basically with inflation. So at the very least, that's trying to address that, where right now a lot of seniors can't take advantage of that because the threshold is low. This would continue to increase every year to keep up with inflation. So that's Article 24.
And Anthony, excuse me, Mr. Anselli, and this is the article, this is the group she identified, that there was a significant number of seniors who might be eligible for this program with these changes. That was based on the board's discussion a few weeks ago?
So yeah, exactly. But there's two options, Madam Chair. There was the option where she didn't have a true idea, from my recollection, of how many people could take advantage of one option. But at the very least, this is what we currently do, but just adds, adjust the income limits every year. So it doesn't stay static, which means resident seniors can really very rarely take advantage of this. This at least would continue to grow.
So this isn't based upon the board's discussion, though. I guess I'm a little bit confused by this.
Yeah, it is, but she was talking about two options, and certainly I can put this article on, Madam Chair, for the 26th for further discussion, invite Kathy here.
I just want to make sure that this is the option that the board was in favor of at the time we had that discussion. I'm not certain that it is, so if we could do that, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Just make a note for that. All right, so we'll hold that to the 26th and get you an answer on that.
Okay.
Free cash to fund, Article 25 is free cash to fund the Highway Chapter 90 deficit. So what happens here, and I don't know if Chris is in the room, Joe, is he?
Yes, he is.
Oh, let's invite Chris in to talk about what happened on this one. Hey, Chris, you're on mute.
No, I'm here.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on, I even have video. Hello.
Good evening,
yeah.
how are you?
Good, thank you. So we had a little snafu and we overcharged the Chapter 90 account in the amount of $22,565. So we have to come out of somewhere to pay that deficit, but in reality, the free cash, $22,565, would have came out of our operating budget So we just had a surplus at the end of the year, so this is kind of fixing that error.
Right. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it at the end of the year because it wasn't captured and we didn't have that authorization. So this kind of fixes that problem now.
Yeah, so the 22,565 that you actually have $22,565 more in free cash than you would have if we caught that in time. So it's really, the money was always there. We just couldn't spend it, so to speak.
Okay. Okay.
Any questions or I'll move on? All right. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Article 26 is FY22 LCTV receipts reserved for appropriation. So this is appropriating $314,000 from their receipts reserved for appropriation towards their budget. Article 27 is to rescind the vote of the transfer of funds regarding the Mill Pond dredging. Article 28 is the general bylaw amendments for cemeteries. As you recall, going back a couple of meetings ago, the cemetery commissioners, we had a joint meeting with them and they requested the changes right here to the bylaws. Article 29 has a couple of sections here, and this is addressing the, as a result of the finance department's reorganization, where we went from just a treasurer to now a treasurer collector and assistant treasurer to assistant treasurer collector. So this article addresses that, these three sections, to make the changes in our bylaws. Article 6C is the personnel bylaw amendments, which brings our town, the personnel bylaw that we've been living with was originally years ago, a long time ago, before we had a professional HR department. This now would put more with the employee handbook and the HR department and with the board, select board.
Article 30.
Yes, Article 30, yes. Thanks, Chuck. Article 31 is the, as you recall, Rebecca was here last Monday and talked about the stormwater management and erosion control bylaw. That's Article 31. The reason why Conservation Commission is highlighted because we just were trying to determine if it was going to be the Conservation Commission that sponsored this article or it was a joint with the Select Board. Article 32 is the Littleton Station 40R. That's all we have right now is the planning board. I would expect, I think they've taken that up on the when's our meeting? The 26th or the 22nd. So this is something where we don't have anything more than what you see. So if you wanted to hold that off until the 26th, we certainly could do that. Article 23 is the senior residential development amendments that the planning board is recommending.
33.
I'm sorry, 33, thank you. Article 34 is the amending the marijuana bylaw to account for delivery, which was something that's happened within this past year as far as regulations about that were approved by the state with delivery of marijuana. Article 36 is to transfer land to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that has to do with the ground property that was just acquired at the last town meeting. So,
It's 35.
35. Article 36. Joe, are we abandoning 36? Joe Layden?
Sorry. If you'd like, Anthony, I could just share screen just to show a visual and
Sure.
then just mention that may want to just make a decision on holding over until the next meeting. So in the planning board's approval of the homes at Croft Common, sorry, there's an open space parcel A, and it's denoted on my screen by this by the yellow line. It goes around the periphery of the development. It does not abut other open space, and it does not connect to townland. So it really is standalone. A homeowners association is going to be actually taking this center parcel B, and they'll be maintaining it. One of the things that had really sort of raised a question would be one, whether or not conservation would want this. Conservation administrator had basically said that because it doesn't link to other areas, they wouldn't have much interest in it. The existing vegetation in this, most of it are pines. So we have the potential, at least in my past experience, there would be a potential where we could receive a lot of phone calls from these abutters saying there's a tree that's damaging, or it potentially could fall down onto my property or my swing set. It might present more of a liability. So prior to, my recommendation would be to not put this on the warrant yet, to give myself and Anthony just to talk to the planning board to see about the homeowners association taking this over rather than us accepting it. And we can provide a final recommendation for the board on the 26th.
Yeah,
And I promoted Chris back.
Can I jump in, Madam Chair?
sure.
Okay. This seems awfully premature to me. We generally don't accept these parcels, even if they've been negotiated out, until the development's more or less done. And they haven't even built a single house yet. So I wouldn't want to be taking title to land and then have there be issues with trees falling or whatever. I mean, let the developers absorb all the problems, potential problems until it's done, and then we take it. I mean, that's kind of been the norm.
If we
So I'm
want to
curious
take
as to who's promoting this. Was this being promoted by the builder or by the planning board, or where did the ask come from?
From Myron, right?
Right, but it was a condition of the decision to basically have it accepted by the select board or conservation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't oppose that in the long run, but I just think, as a matter of past practice, the process has been to kind of let things play out until it's done. I don't know, maybe, Tom, do you have an opinion on that? I'm sorry, through you, Madam Chair.
So I guess need a little information. Is the permit issued? Joe?
Yes, the decision has been filed, recorded at the registry of deeds. They are in the process of lot development.
And so the appeal period has run.
Correct. The bylaw does allow for either a town entity or a homeowners association to take ownership of the open space. So depending on where they are in the process, we may have to just look to see if it could be amended, or whether or not there would be the opportunity to go directly to a homeowners association.
Okay, so I guess from my perspective, it's not necessarily too early. The permit has issued, the lot lines are final, but if you're not, I don't think, hurt by waiting till the fall either.
Right.
And Chris raised some concerns about what Joe had mentioned earlier, as far as, when we end up with open space like this that's really not usable, that it could just potentially be an issue for the town as a potential liability, because these trees will they'll break a fence, and they call up Chris, and then he has to get it. And one of the concerns that Chris brought up is, as far as those are big trees, and access to that, if we ended up taking this, that it's just going to be a potential problem. Whereas if we had the homeowners association take that with the parcel B, it might be something that.
Yeah, and right. Go ahead, Mr. DeCoste.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to town council, if I may, if we do prefer to have the homeowners association take that? Are we able to put a conservation restriction on it to make sure that that land is not, nothing else is done with it?
Yeah, so I'd have to take a look at the permit that was issued, and Joe, you may know the answer to this already, but I think the answer to that would be yes, but might require a permit amendment.
It is an open space subdivision, so that was required to remain as open space. So, you know, it probably could have one, but I don't know if it would necessarily need to have a conservation restriction placed on it.
Belts and suspenders, basically.
Yeah.
We had something similar to this on Reed Meadow off Harvard Road.
Yeah.
And I don't think the town ever accepted the land because we had no purpose to use it for anything. It was more of a liability than it was anything else.
Right,
It's going to collect lawn clippings and leaf piles.
right. And I mean, to Mr. Glaby's point, I mean, we have a lot of articles on the warrant for this town meeting. There's no urgency to address this now. I would just assume
Push it
hold
out.
off on it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everybody's input and comments, but I was primarily thinking just as a practical matter of they get in that halfway through this and discover some issue they hadn't anticipated, either they being the builders or the town's inspectors. You want to have the leeway to go back and amend the permit somehow if there's an issue that comes up. If you've already accepted the land, it just gets messier.
Yep.
You're right, and we'd have to go through an Article 97 procedure if there was some land swap.
Okay,
Good point.
all right. So we'll hold off on that for now.
Okay, great. And, look. All right, so the next one is what we just went through, the deed in lieu of foreclosure, that's Article 37. And Article 38 is the sale of small lots, and that has to do with the tax title. I forget his name. It was his birthday at the last meeting when we talked about.
Brendan.
Yes, Brendan.
Brendan McGuire.
Brendan McGuire, thank you. Yes, so this is the
No
one
relation to Jerry.
which would finish this off. Obviously, there's a lot of work to still do, so hopefully we could make it for this town meeting with this article, but we're moving forward like we can meet everything that we have to do to move forward.
Okay,
And Article 39, right now is the Land Use Department. Thank you, Paul, for bringing it up last time. Town Council did craft to address the reorganization of the Land Use Department. That's Article 39.
I did have some follow-up, and I let the chair know that with council, because I was concerned with the deadline coming up that we might miss that, and I was unaware that this language had already been drafted. Hopefully, on the conversations we had are reflected here, or if not, we can make whatever necessarily changes there are by next Monday. At first blush, I was just concerned that we were mixing two different things together, but I guess since they are associated through an eventual land use department, what I'm speaking to is both the Board of Health piece of it and the building department piece of it. But if Tom, you think they're okay throwing them in both parts into the same article, I guess I'm okay with that.
Well, so I think, I do think this needs some trimming down based on our discussion, and Madam Chair, if I might have a minute, I'll just to kind of give a brief overview of the approach on this. So there are various ways to come up with a land use department. Paul and I spoke this morning and kind of settled on what we think is probably the way that most fits what the town's trying to do here. And that would be to adopt Chapter 43C, Section 13. And that allows us to create, in this case, a Department of Municipal Inspection. So we would have a head of that department, and the inspections that can include building code, wire, plumbing and gas, state sanitary code, Board of Health rules and regulations, fire code, Conservation Commission, Historic District and Historic Commission, and any other local inspections could all fall under this heading, which sounds like what we're trying to do here. So that, and the difference here is this this department or the statutory authorization allows us to do inspections, but it's specific to inspections. And I understand that there are also certain jobs and duties that we would like to transfer to this department additionally. I think the best way to do that is to start out with memorandums of agreement between the new department and the various boards, so that those functions, as those boards desire, slide under this Department of Inspections. And I think that's kind of the quickest, cleanest way to get where we want to go without trying to go down the special legislation route, which, while powerful, we never know how long it's going to take, and I don't know if it's the best solution here. So I guess what I would propose is, if that proposal, and I'm happy to discuss more and take any questions, but if that way forward seems like the right way forward for the board, I would whittle this down so we're just kind of picking those few things to do.
And Tom, if I might just confirm a couple of things, as I think we discussed them this morning. The MOUs that you talk about is basically to memorialize the administrative oversight for the Board of Health, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, the folks that aren't spoken to in the inspections, who have essentially already signed on to this proposal that Ed made. Those administrative functions can be governed in the org chart that he's talked about. And also the title, while the title is specific in the legislation, nothing prevents us from referring to it differently for our own purposes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we can go ahead and use the titles we had in mind, and anyway, I think you've kind of summed it up nicely. The part you didn't address that's in this language here is the specific thing about the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. The need to address that by an article, which should that be separate, or would you continue to include that here?
I wouldn't. Yeah. So thanks for bringing that up, Paul. So the other thing is, if we're gonna remove ourselves from the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health, it would require a town meeting vote. I would couple that in this, so it would be 2 votes under this one article, so that we know if the first one passes, we move on to the second one, which would be the removal from Neshoba, and if the first one doesn't pass, we just pass over the second one. Does that make sense?
And they do have a draft, they being the Board of Health. It hasn't reached us in final form yet, but Lisa Flanagan and Mike Selden shared with me the draft they had. I forwarded it on to Tom, so he's seen it. I don't think there's anything really different there, other than they're looking to do it over time, have the authority to go ahead and hire. I think the biggest impact here is basically to make adjustments to the budget rather than in warrant articles to properly handle the anticipated new revenues that have up till now been going to the Neshoba Allied Board of Health, and then figuring out, how that funds positions under in-house positions for the Board of Health rather than contracted help.
I would say that's accurate.
Okay. Any questions from other members of the board on this? No. Okay.
And the last article, Madam Chair, is Article 40, right now anyway. And that's, again, Paul brought this up at the last meeting, that's addressing the Highway Department and Department of Public Works. And again, we asked town council to be here for discussion regarding this, because he brought up that there are some things that are Public Works, the law that Public Works is in, that there's other things that he had some concerns about, that he was doing some research. So Tom, maybe you can explain it.
Sure. So in this instance, there's a statute that we could accept to create a Department of Public Works. That statute comes with the creation of a Board of Public Works to oversee the Department of Public Works. And again, conversations with Selectman Glavy, I'm not sure that's what we're looking for. So we can do kind of a simpler name change here, which is we're just going to swap out the name Highway Department and insert the name Department of Public Works. And then if and when we want to change authority, we can do that as a bylaw change.
Okay. Any questions from the board on this?
Just add another piece of commentary. Chris went through the exercise of identifying all the places he thought this applied, but of course this generalist language here covers the same territory, but he's kind of already done the spade work for us. As to, you know, somebody's going to have to go back and check all the places where the terms are contradictory. You know, it's cleaning up language for starters, because we never formally made a transition. And as Tom pointed out, if we were to formally make that transition in the context of what statute provides, it envisions a different beast than what we've got right here, which in large measure works fine. You know, I think it's just kind of getting things consistent.
Right. And
Right.
by the way, if for those reading the small print, it's a 2/3 vote because there is a single mention in the zoning bylaw. So we'd have to amend the zoning bylaw as well.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments from the board on this? No? Okay.
That's everything. I don't know how the motion should go since we dropped a couple articles.
I know, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
either.
I know. So we added Article 15 to this. We are holding off on 24. We're holding off on 36.
Was that it? Is that all we've got here?
I thought 21 we were holding off on too, as well.
Oh, right. You're right, Cindy. Thank you. That's the, right. The 21, we're holding off, and we can discuss that again in a couple of weeks. So
we already added the soil removal, correct? That's a different article number?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe, do you know what article that was? Just
Well, it wasn't assigned a number, so that will be,
for the 26th?
no, you mean for the soil removal amendments?
Yes.
Yeah,
That
we
wasn't
just adopted.
Yeah, that wasn't assigned a number, so that's now added. We can then just consider these numbers here.
So, yeah, we can add those on, and any other one that we want to hold for the 26th to insert. That's our last date. So that would be adding Article 15 to this list, holding 21, holding 24, holding 36.
Okay, the list that's shown on the screen does not include the DPW, which would be 40, correct? And again,
Correct.
Right.
the soil removal we just referred to, we giving that a number? We calling that 41, or we substituting
We
it
can
49?
add that. We can add that, Paul, to the 26th board meeting to insert. That's the last date to insert it, so we can clean it up, get the language from town council, and then.
Okay.
The board did vote to put that
Oh,
on
actually,
the warrant,
we
so
did,
we don't
that's
need it.
Right, we're all set. We
We
just
need to
gotta
give
get
it a number. We do need to give it a number.
So that'll be 41.
Okay, all right. I didn't know whether it would take the place of one of the other.
Or it might, once we, if you just decide not to keep something in the warrant, might take another
Okay,
number, but
well,
right now.
for purposes of tonight's vote, I'm going to call that soil removal 41, and
Yes.
if we want to clean them up later on the ordering, fine. In 40 is the DPW article, correct?
Correct.
So from the list, we have an added 15. I'm going to read the numbers first, just make sure we're all in agreement, and then I'll go back and do it as a form of a motion. Is that all right, Madam Chair?
Please. Yep.
Okay. Articles 15, 20, 22, 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41. Is that the way everyone else got it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then I will move that the select board vote to insert the following articles onto the warrant for the 2021 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council. And I suppose I should read them again. Articles 15, 20, 22, 22, 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, Mr. Nordhaus,
Yes?
Mr. DeCoste,
Chuck DeCosta's aye.
Mr. Knox,
Aye.
Mr. Glavy,
Aye.
and Cindy Napoli is aye. The motion is approved as dictated by Mr. Glavy. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Great, thanks, Tom.
Thanks for your help.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, now we are on to item 7A, Senior Center Project Update from Mr. Insaldi and Mr. Layden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as Matthew indicated earlier during public input, that we did attend the COA meeting to update them, give them the same discussion that we were going to have tonight, where we stand with the senior center. So I did explain to them that the senior center is an article, and we went through that it's a two-part article. The first part is the borrowing for the up to $1 million for the sake of design. And part two of that article was to repurpose some capital money from older accounts to make available $80,000 for the purpose of the study. I know that we're trying to think of a new term instead of a feasibility study, but it's the study just to get us to the point where we have a dollar amount which they put on for this project, and so we can proceed with the design. So right now we have money in the space needs account that we're waiting for LLB to give us all of their final deliverables as well as all their final invoices. If by some chance that there is some dollars left over, we may be able to start a little bit earlier than town meeting with the study. But if that's not the case, then we have to wait for town meeting to authorize that article, so we will have the money to do the study. So right now, I know Joe has been working to get LLB, and Joe, I don't know if you have any update with regards to where they stand.
No, they're doing internal quality controls for the final report, and we'll send that along, and then the invoice will follow.
Okay. So maybe by the 26th, Madam Chair, we'll have an idea that if we're able to have some money left over from the space needs, that we could start earlier, and maybe at that point identify some of that working group that would work with Ashley and what I call like phase one of this project. And that working group would change as we go deeper down the rabbit hole in this project. And in other words, when we get to the design phase, we probably would want to include our building inspector, our building commissioner, and as well as PMBC. So more to come on that, but that's what we're waiting for, and we're trying to get LB to find out if we can start any quicker than June 13th, because we can start as soon as town meeting authorizes. We don't have to wait for the fiscal year.
Okay. All right, thanks for that update. So we're just waiting on LLB.
Yeah, we are. I'm sorry. You know, we've been trying to really push them to, we're all anxious to get this project moving. I know it's been identified by each one of you as a priority goal, and we're trying to get there, and we're pushing as much as we can push.
Okay. All right. And so the COA boards formed a working group that's going to work with Ashley. Ashley in turn is going to work with you and or Joe and LLB in conjunction with working with Chuck and I, who have been championing this project for some time now on behalf of the board. So, okay.
So more to come. Hopefully we have some better news for you on the 26th.
Okay. All right, good. Appreciate the update.
And we don't have minutes tonight, Madam Chair, so
I
that
noticed
actually is
that.
the last thing on our agenda. Matthew gave us a deadline of 8 o'clock and
It's working.
that's it.
It's on the
That
nose,
was-
8 on the nose.
That was
You can't
last
blame-
week.
You can't blame
Yeah,
Gonzalez.
last week was the deadline, wasn't it 9:05 or something
Yeah.
last week?
Yep.
Last meeting?
Now, Madam Chair, you're developing a reputation of under budget and ahead of schedule.
I'll take it. I will take it, Mr. Glavy.
All right. I'll make a motion to
Didn't help
adjourn. if that's
Gonzaga,
what
though.
you
Second,
want.
a motion to adjourn.
Excellent. All those in favor, Mr. Nordhaus,
Yes.
Mr. Glavy,
Yes.
Mr. Knox,
All right.
Mr. DeCoste,
Goes to Zai.
and Cindy Napoli is aye. And that concludes the select board meeting for this evening. And we will see you back. When is our next meeting, Mr. Ansaldi?
26.
April 26th, thank you.
April
yes.
26th. Excellent. Great. Thank you.
All right.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.